Did we just lose? I think that might be my something wrong with me. 1 second. We're going to have to put your Tom, your presentation back on the stage.
All good.
Which you're going to have to load it up again. Show your screen again.
I am on it.
I am literally right by the booster, so this is unacceptable. It's Tom Capper, Director of Search Product Strategy at Stat and Moz. I am Jojo Furnival, Marketing Manager at Sitebulb. If you are joining us for the first time, Sitebulb is a website crawler and auditing tool, the only one on the market to offer a desktop version and a cloud version. That means we can help every SEO. You heard me, every SEO. Find out more and access the free trial at sitebulb.com. This is a reminder that the session is being recorded. I will email the recording out to you probably tonight because I'm going on annual leave tomorrow. There will be time for Q&A at the end. So please do, you must all have questions for Tom. I know I do. Please put them in the Q&A tab next to the chat. You can also upvote other people's questions in there. Now to our guest, Tom Capper. Where do I begin? He is a very recognizable face in the SEO community, a regular speaker on the conference circuit, and he's known both for his data-driven research and for challenging the SEO status quo. We've caught him hot off the back of MozCon New York, so please give him a warm welcome in the chat. I am going to hand over to Tom now, and I will see you later for Q&A. Goodbye, have fun.
Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. So yeah, for those asking in the chat, so Moz has a office in London that we share with some of our sister companies, and we've recently moved office. So the new one is, I think you might generously say it's a little bit austere at the moment. So that will explain to you why it looks like this and also why it sounds like this. Anyway, let's just say it's the Death Star and crack on. So you've got a lot to cover today. So this is what I'm going to cover. I have some fresh data I'm going to share with you. I have some new content that I've been putting together in the last few weeks. But the rough outline is going to look like this. So I'm going to talk about mainly the sort of theme for this presentation is the Great Scroll. And when I say the Great Scroll, I don't mean that we're having an impromptu theology lecture. That would be a little bit cruel. Some people would enjoy that, but probably a minority of the audience are looking forward to an impromptu theology lecture. So what I'm actually talking about is how far down you have to scroll these days to find an organic result. Emma, I'm sorry, but I think you may have clicked the wrong link today. It is what it is. Just stay. I think you'll enjoy it. Then I'm going to talk about what I think it means for SEO, both tactically in the short term and also sort of philosophically, which might be more on Emma's radar. There's an irony here, which is that I'm on this webinar representing Stat, which is Moz's enterprise rank tracking provider, and these days also AI visibility and AI sentiment and all the things that go with that. But we're best known as a rank tracker. And yeah, I'm here telling you that I don't think that rank is enough as a metric anymore. I think that you and we and SEOs in general need to go a bit further. Okay, so that's maybe not a great start for my longevity of employment, but also for our spirits on this Wednesday afternoon. And I'm going to make it a little bit worse before I make it better. So this is the picture that rank tells us. So if we think about our traditional rank tracking data, so not including paid, I will talk about paid later because I think that is an important part of this picture. But if we think about our traditional rank tracking data, one of the things that I've talked about a lot in the past few years is the sort of percentage of the time that position one goes for a traditional organic result. And for a lot of the time that I was talking about this, you can see my cursor just about right. A lot of the time I was talking about this, it was more than 50%. It was like 55 to 60% of the time. Position 1, not counting paid, was traditional organic. And then after Google I/O last year, that took a step change, and it took a step change for the worse. And we called that the Great Decoupling. We as an industry called that the Great Decoupling, and it's not coming back in all likelihood. What's driving that story primarily is AI overviews. So this is the big story of SEO last year, right? AI overviews. Getting more and more common. Google seemed to turn up the dial after Google I/O 2025. So the Great Decoupling is about the SERP. It's about changes on the SERP. It's not about a measurement error in Google Search Console or something like that. It is real. But it's also about a change of the funnel, because suddenly we have to think about what it means to do SEO with a reduced emphasis on clicks, whereas in the past, clicks have been everything. There was a time in the past where your whole funnel could be SEO and your whole funnel could be clicks. Right from top to bottom, you're getting a click on your top of funnel page, you're getting a click on a consideration page, you're getting a click on something, and so on and so forth. But the trouble is that right at the top of the funnel, and this has been happening for a long time, featured snippets appeared in what, 2013, 2014, not long after I started my time in SEO. And that's right at the top of the funnel, where the click has been sort of not guaranteed for a long time. And initially, it was just these sort of very critical questions that were no longer driving a click. And if you had a website, as some people did at the time, that was built around the idea of answering these kind of simple questions, then suddenly your business model was looking a little bit jeopardized. And then it started to go further up, and Google started producing these widgets. And what you've got to remember about what a lot of the widgets that they were putting out were doing, think about the weather widgets, for example. We all know those very well. Google makes a loss on those, right? It costs Google money to get that data, to present it to you. They don't put any advertisements next to the weather widget, and they just provide it for free, and you don't click on anything there. So Google is doing that as a loss leader. And that's kind of the same as everything we've seen.
Unfortunately, this is another one of those really, really fun technical issues that we have been experiencing this morning. And I'm just grateful that it's not my end. Although you didn't come here to listen to me prattle on about nothing in particular. You came here to listen to Tom. So let me just email him to make sure that he knows that he's disappeared. He's not going to get that though, is he? Not in time.
My invitation was used to join this event for another tab, it says.
Tom, you're back.
I am back. Someone click my link.
Someone clicked your link.
That's what it said to me. Anyway,
okay.
We're back in business. Where was I up to? Oh yeah, loss leaders. So we've seen this more and
Okay, Tom is having more problems. So let me just, I'm going to give him 2 seconds. There he is.
Could you rustle me up AO? Have we now lost Joe? This is going great. I will attempt to continue, but I suspect something as weird is happening with the Air Meet backstage links. I don't blame you, Simon, I swear. Okay, we continue. Right, so the story we're telling so far in a very bitty fashion with a number of goings and comings is that even if you rank first, you might not get a click. And that's something that we probably should have been thinking more about for a long time, but we're really having to think about now. So the data I'm going to share with you over the next, I guess, 20 minutes or so, this is all just from a customer-facing stat account. I've tried to make a sort of representative-ish corpus of head terms by using the top terms from 21 different topics in Google Keyword Planner, and then a few sort of modifiers and this kind of thing, to give you a reasonably representative picture across a few verticals. But what you'll see as we go through is that this is pretty different vertical to vertical. So that's something you might want to investigate yourself. I'm introducing some metrics, which if you've seen me talk recently, you'll have seen me talk about before, but if you haven't seen me talk recently, it might be new to you. I think they're going to become more common in the industry over time, so hopefully they'll become familiar to you. But the two metrics are pixel position and pixel height. So as this is the site bulb webinar, I thought we'd go for a site bulb theme. So I asked, what's the best bulb for a site? And we got this nice AI overview. But if we were a B&Q, then we might be interested in how far down we are beneath this AI overview. So that would be the pixel position, how far down we are. Then we might also be interested, if we were B&Q, in how tall we are, how large our result is. So that would be the pixel height. We'll start by having a look at desktop. So the median #1 desktop result is about 1,000 pixels down. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, I don't know what that means, Tom. Like, I need some context. Is that a lot? Is that not a lot? We'll come to that in a second. Hold that thought. And then about 250, 300 pixels further down, we get #2. Okay, so here's a typical laptop fold. That's the blue line across the middle. I've put that at 800 pixels. We could have a wonderful debate about whether that is the correct number for a typical laptop fold. But if you think about it, your laptop is probably these days 1080p, or if it's not, then it'll be DPI scaled to 1080p. And then you've got like the Google title bar at the top, and you've got the Windows thing or whatever OS X does across the bottom. So there's about 800 vertical pixels left. And from what I can see, this is now a pretty typical size. So what we can take from that, with what I just shared with you, is that the typical #1 result, more than half of #1 results on desktop, or I should say on PC, are below the fold. And then it takes 5 screens of scrolling to get to what we historically would have called the bottom of the first page. Obviously, the first page is a bit of a nebulous concept these days because we have continuous scroll on a lot of SERPs, but it's still a lot of screens down to get to allegedly 1 page of traditional organic results. If you don't like charts, okay, I can show you this with a visual example, and that's that the majority of results, about 60% of results, are worse than the one that I've just put in front of you. So this image this screenshot is cropped to a typical laptop viewport size, and you can see that position 1 is just, I agree, Patrick, for what it's worth, but I have heard of such people. You can see that typical #1 is just creeping over the bottom of the fold. And that's actually an unusually good case these days. Only about 40% of the time do we see something as good, and this isn't great, as good as what you see in front of you. So I did warn you that there would be some doom and gloom, right? But it's going to get better as we go on. Well, it'll get worse first, actually, and then it'll get better. Okay, so if we're talking about the typical, we could also talk about the best case scenario, right? So that in about the best 10% of cases, you do actually get one whole result that's above the fold. Wow, one whole result. And then position 2 sneaking its way over. It is actually possible that there is room to put about 4.5 organic results above the fold. You see this less than 1% of the time, basically never. If you were to go back far enough, you would see that the majority of the time, right, to see 5 traditional organic results above the fold. But if we talk about best case, we can talk about worst case. And there are plenty of cases out there where you go through 2 whole screens of scrolling just to find position 1. That's what this looks like. So about 1 in 5 desktop SERPs look worse than this example. This is an example I've used before because I think it's kind of remarkable. So the search term here, this is in the UK, and the search term here is compare desks. And if you're Secret Lab, so Secret Lab is a vendor, an OEM of desks, and they're ranking position 1 with a category page with the title tag compare desks. So that's kind of a big win, right? They're doing great. Their SEO team should pat themselves on the back. Except no, because they're like, what, 2,000 pixels down just to get to that position 1 result? It almost, as Simon says in the chat, almost wasn't worth trying in this example. And 1 in 5 actually look worse. 1 in 5 desktop SERPs look worse than this. So this is the kind of situation that we find ourselves in, even if you're ranking position 1. So that was all about desktop or laptop, kind of the same thing these days. Smartphone, it's a bit worse. Its smartphone results are lower than desktop at every rank, and it's even worse than even worse, because if you were to hold up your device in front of you right now, you'd probably notice that your smartphone is smaller than your laptop. Okay, still not getting any happier. What's interesting is that if I'd given you this information only, what, 3 months ago in April, before Google I/O, even the day before Google I/O, actually, I would have told you a slightly less murky story. There's been a march, just like in 2025, after Google I/O, we saw this big change where AIOs became suddenly more common and we all had a bad time. We've seen something similar this year where everything has shifted down. I think this is an underreported story in the SEO industry right now. Everything has shifted down after Google I/O this year. And what's actually driving this is that paid results have gotten bigger, not more common or more numerous, but bigger. Same story on smartphone, although a little bit less pronounced if we were to compare the two. Okay. Hope has left the room. That's a good take, but I'll try and build it back. I'll try and explain why I don't think that this is actually full despair. This is not SEO is dead, quite the contrary. So you've probably been seeing stats like this. This is from last year or late last year, showing that even after the Great Decoupling, actually Google's outbound traffic was roughly stable. This is a similar story from Aleda, also using clickstream data. And this is some stats from Rand, showing that Google itself is going nowhere. So Google is still there, it's still dominant, it's still sending as much outbound traffic as it ever was. And yet we have this sort of murky picture in front of us. So what gives? This contradiction is also not necessarily new. This is a blog post which is still live that my friend and colleague, Dr. Pete, wrote. And you'll notice that he wrote it in 2013. Just after my 21st birthday, this blog post was written. And at the time, he was looking at a few extreme examples, which I think we would look at them now and say are quite typical. they look more like a median SERP now, whereas at the time they looked like an extreme outlier, and he was very concerned. But my point is, just like I was saying earlier with feature snippets and with weather results and this kind of thing, this story has been around for a long time. The SEO industry is suddenly forced to reckon with it, but this isn't actually new. I think the sort of pixel metrics that I've been showing you, I think this is one way of sort of explaining some of these contradictions, and also how we can look at them a bit differently and maybe adopt a different mindset. Now, there's an elephant in the room, which is AI mode. Google has always adopted these sort of different use cases, and you now increasingly see SERPs. I don't know if you've noticed this yourself. If you write a long tail query, interact with the AI overview, you're basically straight into AI mode. The line between them has become very blurred. That doesn't mean that AI mode is going to replace search for every use case, though. This is just like the weather results. No one was clicking on the stuff beneath that weather widget, right? Or probably like 1% of sessions or something. This is just like that. This is, okay, there are a certain set of use cases which Google has decided no longer merit a click. And that's kind of what all of this shares. The whole story that I've been telling across this is that fewer organic clicks is a theme that we're having to deal with. What I'd like to encourage you to do is to think about other outcomes from a SERP. So let's go on a brief side quest into a story about brand in Google search. So I've long been an advocate. This blog post is from 2019. I've long been an advocate of impressions as a metric that SEO sort of take for granted. And we took it for granted for a long time because we had better, because we had clicks, and because we had end-to-end attribution. But at the same time, there were whole industries that existed just to drive impressions. Top of funnel marketing traditionally doesn't have to involve a storefront interaction, right? Like if I put up a billboard, I'm not expecting to immediately get a phone call from the person that saw it or something like that. And the team that puts up billboards for your company or runs TV advertisements or does traditional PR in newspapers, this team probably has a bigger budget than the SEO team. In a lot of big companies, that would be the case. And this is kind of the story that are getting a lot of pushback, and maybe rightly so. This is kind of the story that Google is trying to tell as well, that maybe you will still get a click, but it's going to arrive further down the funnel, and it's going to be harder to trace the path. Attribution is the big victim here, not SEO. Also, if you want to be old school about this, for a long time, if I'd said that impressions were good for rankings, I would have been a sort of tinfoil hat enjoyer. But these days, we know this is true. We know that indirectly, via NavBoost, Google is saying that if you are a recognized brand that people are used to seeing, you will get promoted in the re-ranking. That's not the kind of billboard I had in mind, Patrick, but I suppose so, yes. He probably does rank better for some things because of this. I put out this study in 2017, 9 years ago. Again, this is a long story. I put out this study saying that some brand metrics predicted rankings for the most contested ranking spots better than domain authority. And this is a bit awkward because at the time I wasn't responsible for domain authority, whereas I am now. So I was undermining my future self. But what I can say now in 2026 is that actually, if I rerun the same study, domain authority has gotten a bit better. Domain authority is a better predictor of rankings than it was in 2017 for the most contested terms. And we kind of know that, and that's what you've seen with the helpful content update and this kind of thing, where a lot of smaller sites have gotten heavily punished, right? Just for the crime of being a small site. But brand has become a slam dunk. Brand has become an incredibly strong predictor of rankings. Right. Back to the story about what we actually see in the SERPs. Yeah, for some reason, I'm very good at wooing toddlers to sleep, Jojo. Who'd have thought? Simon, can I interest you perhaps in some guest posts? Very high DA, for sure. Right, anyway. This is the example of the kind of thing I'm talking about. So on the left, we have a position 1 result. On the right, we have a position 1 result. I think we'd agree that these were not made equal. And there's a few ways in which they're not equal. One is obviously how far down we are on the right. But the other thing is how much more visually striking the result is on the left. If your goal was just to be recognized as a brand, if you were thinking about this from a visual perspective, you've got extra reasons to pick the one on the left. But you might also be looking at this and thinking, hang on the left, we've got like an informational SERP, and on the right, we've got like a commercial SERP. So maybe that's part of the story here, kind of. As a reminder, traditionally in search, we've talked about a funnel that looks something like this, where you've got your informational queries, and then you go down the funnel, and then post-conversion, you might have your navigational queries. So you might be thinking that this explains the story I'm saying about the sort of degradation of position 1. Not really. Navigational does stand out, and this makes sense, right? Because for a navigational query, by definition, the user is looking to click on a link. So yes, position 1 is higher for navigational queries, not as high as you might hope. And a big part of the reason for that is that a lot of brands bid on their own brand terms. So that actually pushes down position 1 for their own brand terms. But the other 3 stages in the funnel have kind of a similar shape. On informational, though, we see AI overviews dominating. And what you'll see as I go through these is different kinds of SERPs. The story is the same in that organic is being pushed more further and further down, but the story is different in terms of what is doing that and what it would take for you as a brand to appear above organic if you wanted to do that. So in informational, we kind of know the story, right? And it's AI overviews. And again, we can talk about site blocks here. Even for informational now, paid is a surprisingly big chunk of the picture. So what this pie chart is showing is a share of the above the fold pixels that exist for informational queries in the set that I looked at. See, paid has about 1/3 of the above the fold pixels, even for informational queries. But if we look at what's in the rest of the space, we've got AI overviews, knowledge graph, images. These are very visual result types. And if we look back and remind ourselves, oh, he says, can I not click back? Maybe we will not, in fact, look back and remind ourselves. No, we will. We've also got videos coming in here. And if I scroll down further on this SERP, you would also see organic results that had images and videos attached to them. So the picture we have is a very visual SERP for a lot of these informational queries these days. And you might be as well placed to invest in your imagery as your copy or something like that. There's a complicating factor here, which is that even though I'm saying, okay, AI overviews have like 1/4 of the above the fold space, and then maybe organic plus images, plus maybe one of the things in other combined have a similar share. Again, they're not made equal, because although they might be getting a similar share of the above the fold space, then they're always appearing in a certain order as well. So we normally see AI overviews pretty close to the top. It is possible to rank above an AI overview, but it's not common. You also notice that not many AI overviews actually touch the top of the SERP, even when they are in position 1. That's because Google sometimes puts a lot of padding on them. I don't know why that is. That's up to them. Feature snippets, they don't have the padding things. They are pinned right to the top, but feature snippets are pretty rare these days. Something like 2% of SERPs have a feature snippet. But organic, even when organic is above the fold, it's sort of only just. So it's already at a sort of disadvantage here. For commercial, it's a different picture, and we have these sort of product feed-based results that dominate. And yet, paid. Paid is a product feed-based result in a sense, I guess, for a lot of these commercial queries. But this is a pretty stark picture, right? And this is pretty different to if I'd shown you this only a few months ago. My guess is that Google, because they're putting AI overviews on so many results, they're effectively demonetizing large swathes of search, and they're making it up in examples like this. So as I say, a lot of this is not necessarily just about feature placement, but also feature size, how big some of these result types are. And shopping and AIOs, they can be very large results. Which brings me to opportunities. So I said that there would be a positive story here, and I still haven't really delivered on that, apart from telling you that maybe you should think about yourself as more of a visual brand channel. Even in organic, it's possible to have pretty big, pretty visual, pretty noticeable results. And what you'll notice is that these types of results are ones that add effectively rich snippets, that add more than just your 10 blue links. And I think this was always an opportunity to improve your CTR or whatever. But if you're thinking about search in this visual way, then this becomes even more important, and maybe more important than ranking, to be honest. I'll show you some examples of that later. But you can see in this case on the right as well, that this is an organic result, which is above the AI overview that cited it. And that can happen. But how bad the picture is for organic varies dramatically by vertical, which is why I say you should really look at this with your own keywords and your own data. You see, I appreciate this might be small on your screens, but you can see home and garden on the left. The median position 1 position on smartphone is like 3 screens of scrolling down, because there's so many of these sort of product features and this kind of thing. Whereas for retail on the right, actually ends up pretty far up. If we look at the verticals with the lowest visibility, again, we have this story, this lowest organic visibility, sorry. Again, we have this story that although organic is being pushed down in all these cases, what is pushing organic down varies. So for home and garden, it's popular products in yellow. For arts and entertainment, it's the knowledge graph in green. For dining and nightlife, it's local packs in orange. So this is how you appear above your own organic is, I think, a question that you should be asking now. But the answer to that question is going to vary a lot depending on your keywords and who you are. And in some of them, it's more stark than others, right? Like if you're in dining and nightlife, you're saying, oh no, organic is being pushed down, but what's above it is local packs. Okay, great. Local packs is something that you can influence. This is not a disaster for you. But if you're in arts and entertainment and what's appearing above you is knowledge graph, you're saying, oh, that's actually not great. Knowledge graphs do not represent that much of an opportunity. What is my strategy now, right? Do I need to think of this channel in a different way? And what are some of the choices that you might make? So what have we prioritized by size? What do I mean by that? Some of the biggest features that I just showed you are winnable. Shopping, AI overviews, popular products. Okay, some of these you're going to win with feeds, which might be the paid team's job, but you should probably be taking an interest in that, to be honest, especially with agentic e-commerce coming. Feeds are a new sort of area for a lot of SEOs because they've left it to other teams in the past, but this is ultimately organic result types. I said earlier, organic can be big. Like these are 2 results from the same SERP. I just scrolled further down to get the 2 screenshots, get the right screenshot after getting the left one. And even regardless of the order in which you hit these, obviously the version experience one on the left is so much more striking than the red letter days one on the right. And again, if the whole point of rank, the reason we cared about rank was because we thought it was correlated with chance of a click, right? Surely this is correlated with the chance of a click. And even more so if what we're trying to do is get an impression. Because does the one on the right really leave an impression with you at all? And I realize I'm blurring impression, the metric, and impression, the sort of marketing jargon, but that's kind of the point I'm making. Rich snippets are your routes to sort of prioritizing size with organic. And this data, I will say, is quite volatile in terms of what drives the size of organic results. The bar on the right is fully expanded site links. So that's branded SERPs, basically. So I wouldn't worry too much about that because you're not going to turn every keyword into a branded SERP. But you can see that you can be more than a third larger in your result type if you, for example, manage to get a video added to your organic result. Or roughly the same with just 1-line site links if there's other related pages on your site. So there's all these things you can think about. And you might start to prioritize different things. You might start to focus less on things that are just about gaining more rankings for more keywords, because the old model said that was more clicks, and more about other things. I've used this example before, but I really like it, so I'm going to use it again. Does this really count as one, right? This example on the left with with Breck's flowers. Okay, this is a branded SERP. It's an extreme example. Your rank tracker tells you probably that Breck's has 1 rank on this SERP. But even if Trustpilot was above them, you would rather be Breck's, right? The size would be more important than the rank. This affects how we should think about paid as well. Here's another example. Imagine you're Royal Caribbean. Which of these is a bigger opportunity? Would you rather gain this position 1 ranking on the right, or would you rather gain this position 2 ranking on the left? Obviously the position 2, right? But if you only look at rank, you'll never make that decision. So where do we go from here? We should go about impressions. I talked about that. It doesn't have to be about click. We're in this world where we need to think of ourselves more like these older teams. These billboards that I've been sort of alluding to these also don't generate attributable clicks. And what you can say about them is that size matters, right? That we care about whether a billboard is big or small if we're buying billboards. I already covered that. But there's also a way that this applies to how we should think about AI, because GEO is also a channel that is very unlikely to generate a click. If I'm saying that visibility is how we think about SEO, that's even more true in GEO. That does mean that we shouldn't overfocus on citations. Let me show you what I mean. Here is an example of a rather esoteric Google AI mode query. Now you can see that there is a site that is cited, and you can see that there is a brand that is mentioned. If you're Audi, you for sure consider this a success, right? Audi is not cited in this query. Even if I were to expand it, they're not one of the cited sites for this query, but which means they're not going to get a click. And yet this is pretty much the best possible result for Audi for a query like this. Every single vehicle mentioned is an Audi. We shouldn't be going about GEO in a way that is prioritizing gaining referral traffic. And I know that there's been this story recently. So a year ago, ChatGPT referral traffic halved, and then more recently, it doubled. But if you're a mathematical genius, you might be able to, or even if you're not a mathematical genius, you might be able to point out that if something halves and then doubled, and it was very small to start with, it's still very small. And that's kind of where we are with this. So even now, ChatGPT is a low single-digit % of site traffic. This just isn't a traffic driving channel. It is not a replacement for the old model of SEO. It's a complement for the new model of SEO. Citations are important information, but they are tactical information. This is what should inform your GEO strategy. And this is a bit of an aside. It's not really what I'm talking about today, but the biggest way that GEO is different from SEO tactically is that you're going to primarily do on other people's websites. And that's something that the SEO industry has to sort of grapple with. But citations are important tactical information for that, but they're not a KPI because you're not trying to get clicks. Presence is the metric that you would look at instead. Maybe sentiment, although I will say this is complicated. So where are we at? You care about your customers finding you. Obviously, that's what we've always been doing all along. But in AI, that means you're talking about mentions, about being part of the conversation. In SEO, it might well be the same. I'm not saying that SEO's performance marketing channel is gone or is dead, but I'm saying that we probably should have been thinking about it in other ways as well for longer than we have been. I think share of visibility, and this isn't a hard number, but this is a sort of approach that you could have to reconcile these two channels, and also how you're going to talk about them with your C-suites. Right, wrapping up, and I have sped up a little bit because we had some, I don't know, surprises at the start. So the SERP has changed. It's not coming back. We're not going to have your traditional template links. We're certainly not going to have template links above the fold. You care about visibility, you care about presence. These are things that you can answer, that you can measure. So you can SEO in pixels. If you would like to find out more about this or to have a go yourself, You can either get in touch with me directly or with one of my colleagues. I would love you to do so. I think for now, though, we are going to have some Q&A pending possible technical difficulties.
I don't know what you mean. No, everything has gone off without a hitch.
Of course, I totally agree.
Surprises? No. Thank you so much. Thank you for persevering. We got there in the end. I'm so sorry to everybody watching for the fucking technical issues. Right, let's get stuck into some questions. So, we've got a few, and I have some as well. Show on stage. This is from the wonderful Laura. You speak a lot about the SERP UI, which is something I've been monitoring for fun, but now I find it too cluttered and a bit of an info/pixel overdose for the user. Any ideas on how to clean it up a little?
What a nerd.
Yeah, I know, right?
So the question is about how Google should clean up the SERP UI. Am I reading that right?
That's kind of how it reads. That's kind of how I understand it. Maybe
I've seen
what would
Google
you
themselves.
do?
Yeah, I've seen Google themselves talk about this. Not super recently, but last year. I was trying to remember who at Google was. It might have been Gary. Someone at Google was talking about this, and we've noticed in our own data that they have sort of retired or marginalized some of these features. At one point, I think we were up to something like 120 features tracked in stat, and we're now down to about 100 that have meaningful presence. So I think this is something that Google is thinking about. And especially there was a period where you could get like AI overview, feature snippet, knowledge panel, organic with FAQs attached. And it was just like the same answer presented with 4 different wordings, and it was a bit of a mess. So I think they have taken steps in the right direction. Well, maybe it's the wrong direction from a traditional SEO point of view. I think it's interesting with AI mode, there are far fewer features. So I wonder if we'll see, like, even though I don't think what AI mode looks like now is in 1,000 words of text is where we're headed for every result type. I wonder if we will see sort of further simplification. Yeah, my biggest gripe personally is just the word count for typical SERP now. Like, even in the cases where I want AI mode, an AI mode answer, I don't necessarily want to read 3 paragraphs of text to get it, right? And I don't know, I'm not the right person to comment. You know, maybe I should talk to a machine learning specialist, something like that, in terms of how the models could be pushed towards delivering a more succinct answer. But I think the picture heavy side as well, the thing where the SERPs are looking more and more like a Google Discover feed or an Instagram feed or something like this, that's been a trend we've seen over a long time. And my suspicion is it's not going away. Although maybe I would like it to.
Okay, all right, cool. I mean, yeah, kind of what you said about, you know, like AI mode or AI, it's such a long answer. It's like, bring back the featured snippet almost.
Kind of.
So at least that was nice and short. Anyway, righty ho. So Splendid Simon says, everything is in a lot of flux at the moment with SERPs. What's the long-term strategy? Sit back and wait or test to death? I feel like that depends on how much energy you've got.
I mean, I don't recommend death. That would be an unfortunate takeaway. But it's always both, right? In SEO, we know there's going to be change, and we have to think about where things are going, which is kind of what I'm pushing towards in this presentation and in this overview, is that clearly the way we're going is fewer clicks. Like, we're not going to rewind and go back to more clicks, or it seems very unlikely. So the role of SEO in your channel mix is changing. And that's kind of what you should be thinking about. But at the same time, we're not all the way there yet. And I don't think we're gonna be all the way there anytime soon. People are talking about 0 click. not just zero-click SERPs, but zero-click SEO, as in every SERP becoming zero-click. I think we're a long way from that. There's still so many reasons that people, and indeed agents, although that's a whole tangent, want to go to websites. So I think you kind of have to optimize for both. You have to think about what the long-term reality is, but you also can't ignore the present day. Like I've had conversations with people in the last couple of years where they're saying, oh yeah, I've completely abandoned traditional SEO and I only care about my presence in AI answers. And I think that's leaving a lot on the table, because there's a lot of money you could be making this year and next year and the year after based on traditional SEO. And in any case, that's going to undermine the future. That's going to not undermine. That's going to underpin the future in some sense, anyway. Yeah. So yeah, unhappy answer, but I think it's both. At least I didn't say it depends.
Yeah, that was the really long version of it depends. So in that case, and this was the question that I was going to ask you if I had the chance, but Patrick has got there before me. So will SEO become only a brand channel?
No, I don't think so. In the far future, or agentic or whatever, it's hard to say. But I think things change gradually, and maybe if we were able to peek into the future and see SEO 15 years from now, and it turns out that a lot of the organic activity or the organic performance marketing activity is around feeds or something like that, then we might say, oh wow, that barely resembles SEO, therefore SEO is only a brand channel. That would be the sort of strongest devil's advocate argument I could make. But personally, I think even that is far-fetched, and even that is SEO. So no, I think what's changing is that we have thought about SEO, we as in SEOs, including me, have thought about SEO for a long time as overwhelmingly a performance channel.
Yeah.
And now it's more of a 50-50 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we kind of have to get on board with that.
Yeah, I'd go along with that 100%. Not that anyone cares what I think. Right. Show on stage. So this is from Sally. Do you have any recommendations for tracking pixel position on mass, i.e. across keywords / product groups or categories?
And this feels like I paid for this question to be asked, although I didn't, because that's what our tool does. I suppose I should say, for the benefit of transparency and BBC-ism, that there are other tools in the market that do similar things. But yeah, a good rank tracker will give you this data. Okay,
there we go. Okay, this is another one from Laura. This is an interesting one. I'm curious, in your experience, which SERP feature has the most weight at the moment? If that has changed since worldwide adoption of AIO, AIM?
Weight as in?
I guess like priority, like number one rank almost.
I'm taking this to be like sort of what's the feature that is most pushing around the rest of the SERP, that is both common and big and here to stay. And
yeah, that makes sense.
If AIOs count as a feature, which I think they do, then it is definitely still them. But I do think at the same time, like I was saying in the presentation, that paid is definitely not a feature, right? And also paid results come in various types. But I think these sort of product carousel or sponsored product carousels that we have seen for a long time, they are getting more common, they are getting bigger. And I think if you were based in the US, then you've probably been saying this for a couple of years, because this was a big thing in the US, and it's only in the last year or so that UK e-commerce SERPs have started to look like this, and they're still not as extreme as the American ones. If you put your VPN on and search some sort of e-commerce terms in the US, it's like you're looking at a faceted nav on Amazon, honestly. It's pretty extreme. We're not quite there, but I think it's the direction we're going. So yes, I think sponsored products is the sort of black sheep, even though it's not really a SERP feature. Or traditionally we wouldn't have called it one because it's paid. But besides that, I expected AIOs to be replaced with some kind of dynamic, depending what you search, you go straight into AI mode kind of thing at Google I/O. That isn't what happened. Or maybe with web guides. Web guides are pretty cool, and they've been in beta for like a year. What happened to those? Did Google sort of get cold feet on this, maybe? So yeah, I wish the answer wasn't AIOs, but it's AIOs.
Okay. Kathy asks, is there a strategy that would work for obtaining real estate for multiple SERP types? Can you think of a decent example?
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that your organic strategy probably applied to multiple SERP types, perhaps with the same pages or the same content hubs or whatever it might be. But the sort of the biggest simple tactical changes that I could give you, and I know you asked for a strategy, and I'm going to give you tactics instead. I work in SEO, I can't help it. The biggest sort of simple things that would probably be different to what you would do otherwise would be that you would emphasize structured data that is linked to rich results. You would emphasize producing your own imagery and videos, and you would, I hate to say it, probably go and have a chat with the PPC team. And these are the things that might spread across, they'll help you across a lot of different SERP types. And I think maybe it should be, if your goal is to be more visible and more recognizable on the SERP.
Okay.
And so also in AI results, to be fair.
So that would be that's sort of tactical. How might an SEO team think about adopting a more visibility focused mindset?
I think the SEO team adopting it is in some ways the easy part. The hard part is persuading your C-level that you spent the last 15 years saying, hey, look, all you should care about is clicks. Those other channels don't deliver clicks, and I do. That actually you were wrong all along, and what you're doing is delivering more impressions than the channels that deliver impressions, but that you told them not to care about. So I think this is the hard conversation, is to go and sort of have a chat with your board and retcon everything you said before. And how best to approach that is going to vary a lot depending what your board's like, what your CMO is like, where you are in that picture. Getting the SEO team, and as I say, it's a balance. It's not like you're throwing the old stuff completely out the window.
No.
But getting your SEO team to adopt this, it's probably easier. There might well be a team in your organization, depending on the size of your organization, that is already interested in brand positioning and brand marketing and brand awareness as their main thing. You probably need to get them on side as well, right? If you're going to turn up and say you need a piece of their lunch.
So this sounds like the concept of, I was having a big old chat with Miriam Jessier the other day, and we were talking about, they sort of brought up the concept of technical branding, because I was talking about obviously branding. And Miriam was like, because you need to have somebody within the business or a team within the business that is thinking about branding, but from that AI and that sort of technical perspective, rather than and like maybe the brand team doesn't care or doesn't want to sort of get involved with that. So maybe we love a new term in the SEO world. So maybe technical branding is what we're going to talk about now.
I think the sort of exciting thing, I guess, is that for a long time, SEOs have been the people that have sort of ended up owning quite a disparate range of activities, right? Like, if you think about if you are or have worked as an SEO consultant or a freelancer or something like that, or maybe you've just had many jobs. If you think about the organizations in which you've known the SEO team, in how many cases did they own the Google Analytics installation? It's probably like 80%, right? 80% of SEO teams own their Google Analytics installation. Why is that? That's nothing to do with SEO, right? SEOs are just sort of the random owners of outside the box technical problems in a lot of organizations. And that isn't the definition of SEO, to be clear. I'm not proposing that. But we are quite well placed in terms of the skill set that we have built and the cross-functional basis that we have with more or less success tried to build, we are quite well placed to walk in and say, actually, we are the right people to meet this moment. But it definitely overlaps with other parts of your organization more than, in most cases, you probably have done in the past.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in the chat. I think Simon said SEOs are webmasters. Emma says they feel so seen. And Laura's like, every single time in my experience, and I don't mind it at all. Love it, actually. So yeah, there we go. Not beating the nerd allegations. I think we are going to call it a day now. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you everybody for joining us and for persisting through the nightmare. Our next webinar is with the equally awesome Jono and Alderson. Oh my goodness. And that's in August. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Hope to see you then. Bye.